Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is Rubidium. Today we are talking about how simple it is to succeed as a filmmaker. Succeed at anything, really. But I'm going to break down the specific and achievable steps that you can go through to be in the top one, if not the top 0.1% of filmmakers in terms of fame, wealth, creative control, any metric that you want to put on it. These steps are simple, but they aren't easy. We know, and everyone who has made it to the top of their own individual filmmaking hill is just happy to share the steps because so few people will take the opportunity to actually pursue them. Everyone who's telling their story is just time and time again saying, I did this, and then I did this, and I did this, and then I got to here. And so many people who want to become filmmakers go about it the wrong way, go about it constantly changing direction and changing goals and switching up what it exactly is they're after. And when they don't meet the success that they want after just a couple of years, they give up and they try programming or writing or game development or whatever it is, social media. But we know very clearly what the steps to success are, and yet fewer and fewer people are taking them. This is at a time when it has never been easier to be a filmmaker. And I've said this on this channel before, that 20 something years ago, before digital, you needed $1 million, maybe $700,000 just in film and camera rental to make a feature film. That's why so few of them were made. You had to depend on the gatekeepers. You had to depend on the studios, the financiers, because not everyone has, $500,000 lying around. I'm saying $500,000 because that's what it was back then. It's doubled now in today's dollars. It was probably $1 million. But all of the one by one, all of the things that made film expensive, which made it you have to go and get the money from somewhere else and not make it yourself, have fallen away. Cameras, you can get better quality on a sub $5,000 camera like the C80 than you did on most Super 35 cameras 20 years ago. Not that Super 35, in Hollywood standards, isn't a cut above the C80, but most people were shooting with not enough light, not very good lenses, secondhand recans or short ends on film, which was unpredictable and hard to do. We were shooting with not the best cameras, so the quality, while it was film, didn't look anything as good as you get on a $4,000 cinema camera today. Add to the fact that back then you had no idea what you were shooting. If you messed up your stop calculations or your aperture or your focus, you had no idea that you'd messed it up until you'd gone home, developed the footage, had the footage developed. You couldn't do it yourself. Paid for a telecine because you couldn't transfer it yourself, and seen that you'd messed up and you had to go back and do it again. Now we not only get to see what we're shooting, you can apply LUTs to it. You can get something very close to the image that's going to be on the screen on the camera as you're shooting it. So you know exactly what your light should look like, what your color should look like, what your depth of, separation is going to look like. We have autofocus now, even on cinema primes. We have cold, cheap LEDs. This is important because you used to only have tungsten and HMIs, which are really hot lights. If you put them inside a house, they would cook you. You couldn't have them near your talent. You had to have them, 10, 15 feet away even for a close-up, because these big tungsten bulbs would get hot and everyone would start sweating. Now you have LEDs like this that I'm like a foot from my face, as bright as you want them. I just bought a 120 watt Bowens mount LED for $100 from China. It works great. It looks great. If it breaks, I'll get another one. I mean, it's all but disposable. It's never been easier to find actors. I put a $100 role on Backstage a few months ago and got almost 1,000 submissions. And education is everywhere. If you want to shoot a scene in a kitchen and you want to light it like a horror movie, there's half a dozen, dozens probably, of tutorials on YouTube about how to do that, how other people have done that. You can pick and choose from, the type of lighting you want to the type of setup that you have. Almost everything you could need is at your fingertips. And yet people don't take advantage of it. I have almost everything that I've learned in 20 years on a website called Canon Masterclass. You can get it for 60, 70 cents a day. And, I do have, a couple thousand people that signed up, but honestly, it's a tiny fraction of the people that could benefit from that knowledge, that actually take advantage of it. It really blows my mind. If I had had that resource 20 years ago, I'd be on my 15th feature film by now. Not only is it incredibly cheap and easy and available to shoot the film that you want, there are a million ways to distribute it. And an independent filmmaker, self-distributing, has access to exactly the same tools that the studios do. When they launch, Deadpool versus Wolverine 7, they're just buying ads on Meta and Google and TikTok and wherever else and trying to hone it in onto the audience that wants to see that film. That's the same tools that you have access to. You probably, because you know your film better, you know your audience better, you can probably narrow it down and be more effective with your advertising than a studio can. And there's just so many ways to get your film out into the world by sharing what you're into, sharing your expertise, showing how it was made, all those different ways that you have found out about the films that you like, you can use to let other people know about the film that you made. So there are so many opportunities in terms of the creation, and this is not even taking into account how AI is going to essentially be a $100 million VFX studio for free with Runway and Midjourney. We're going to be able to generate backgrounds and models and all kinds of stuff in the coming years. So that is the good news. What is the bad news? The bad news is that the same tools that are available to you are available to everybody else. There are literally 1 million people in North America right now who have exactly the same idea as you, exactly the same desire to become a writer, director, producer of a feature film and bring it out into the world. I will tell you, however, that most of them won't. So let's just start with the number 1 million. That's one. We think about the US, it's 370, 380 million people here. 1 million is about 0.3%, something along those lines, which is probably a pretty decent estimate as far as people who like movies and would like to make one. I'm going to use the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, and say that of those million that go ahead and actually write a screenplay, and the screenplay is good, the screenplay is something that they're proud enough of that they want to spend the next couple of years of their life bringing that screenplay into fruition. Of the million that write the screenplay, only 20% will go ahead and raise money and find locations and start filming a film. So that's 200,000. Of those, I would estimate only about 20% will finish it, will get all the way to the end. Of the of that number, probably only 20% will get through the year-long gruel of color grading, mixing, editing, visual effects, titles, credits, you know, everything, and have a completed film. And of that 20% that get all the way through, only 20% of those will then actually have the will and the savvy and the ability to raise the money again and buy ads and market that film. So you're down to, of those, you know, starting with 1 million, only $200,000, 200,000 people actually start making their film. Only about, 320 people will actually release their movie of the 1 million that start with a script. That's taking the 20%, 5-6 times. Now, of those 300, only 20% will do it again and take all the things that they learned and all the wisdom that they gained from those 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years making and releasing that film. Only 20% of those will go ahead and take everything that they've learned and go and make another film. That would be my estimate. So of the 320 that released the movie, only 64 will go back and try again and not have had the experience, put them off filmmaking forever. So it's an incredibly rare thing. Starting out with 1 million and you're down to 64 people that will actually make a second feature and learn from the first and then do it again. You can quickly see that every obstacle that you come across, if you let it deter you, if you let it break you, if you let it basically make you turn around and look for something easier, you're giving up the opportunity that once you make it across that hurdle, across that river, across that boundary, you leave the majority of your competition behind. So you start out with 1 million people who've written a great screenplay and are willing to put it into production, and you're down to only 64 people who go all the way through the process, learn from it, and are prepared to try again. And think of it, after they finish the second movie, are they prepared to do a third? It's 1 or 2 people that are already out of the 1 million that are prepared to learn again and go back for a third time. I've only done 2 feature films, so I'm one of the 64. I will probably do another feature film because I've learned so much from the previous one that I want to put into effect in my third one. And of course, technology's come forward, and I've got this YouTube channel, and I'm able to connect in so many advantageous ways to people who make the equipment, people who want to collaborate with me, people who would finally pay money to see the film. That each time your success rate goes higher and higher. But this is just to illustrate that the information is out there, the gear is really easy to find. The actors and the collaborators are only too happy to work with someone who is driven and dedicated and determined to make their vision a reality. And yet, again, most people won't do this. Now, I know that everybody isn't aspiring to become a feature film producer director. Some people want to become actors and want to use their film as a springboard for their acting career. That's great. Some people would rather make TV commercials and have a production company and get rich, or you make music videos and connect in that sense. The same things apply. As many people as there are starting out, you lose the majority of them at each step of the way. You lose the majority of them, as you go. And so if you stick with it 5, 6, 7, 10 years, you realize that you now have expertise that very few people out there have. And your only competition is yourself. Your only competition, you're making such unique and individual movies that there is no competition. It's just you making great films. That's why, almost every successful movie director out there is a huge fan of every other successful movie director out there. Tarantino loves Nolan's movies. Nolan loves Michael Mann's movies. There really is no sense that people are competing with one another because they've all gone through this pressure cooker, this long multi-decade gauntlet to be able to make the films that they like. There is so much opportunity out there for people who will actually do the work. And, we started this episode talking about how simple it is, how you can so clearly see your way forward when you're standing it. But it's not easy. It's like walking across that Sahara Desert. You go from this place to this place to this place. You just keep walking in the one direction. You're going to get to the other side. And yet, the vast majority don't go the distance. They don't see their task to fruition. They would rather, when it gets hard, see that, let their brain tell them that this is the wrong direction and turn around and try another direction and go down that road for a year or two, and then encounter the difficulty of a slump, go with another direction, end up doing nothing. So I implore you, if you want to achieve anything, if you want to be able to distinguish yourself and really get the satisfaction that comes from getting good at something, have a 10-year plan, have a 5-year plan at least, and commit to that, making 2 feature films before you decide this isn't for me. Because all along the way, you will be tempted to give up because it is really difficult. It's not just physically difficult, it's mentally difficult. It's very lonely. You'll be the only one pushing this thing forward when all of your collaborators have gone off and done other things. You'll be alone in DaVinci Resolve with a huge timeline that doesn't quite work, and you need to redirect all your efforts and go in and cut it again to make it even better. It is really brutal work, but the alternative is working for somebody else. The alternative is being a cog in somebody else's machine. So I was lucky enough to be stubborn that I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to be someone else's cinematographer. I never wanted to, write someone else's screenplay for them. I wanted to make my movies my way. And because I had no other path, because I, essentially burned the boats, I stuck with this long enough to get good enough at it and eventually successful in it. So it really is, I guess it's largely a matter of character. It's really who you are, because, if there were easier ways to feel fulfilled and achieve something, I probably would have taken them. I just stuck this out year after year until, I was, of my friends that I started making films with, there's just me and one other guy that are still doing it, in our late 40s. But when I look back at who I was when I started, I think I would be really proud of what I've been able to achieve. I did it on my terms, and I've found the success greater than I ever could have dreamed of. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that helps somebody out there see that the path is ahead of you. You just need to dedicate yourself to it and choose to walk forward. I will see you next time.